Everyone cracked up when Sarah stepped through the door in her workout clothes. 12 seconds later, nobody was smiling anymore. Sarah didn't turn any heads when she first showed up. Most people figured she was lost, maybe looking for her daughter's dance class or something. She had on this basic gray sweatsuit, nothing special about it. No fancy brands or flashy colors, just clean and simple. A plain blue tank top showed underneath. No writing, no designs, just blue. This was a Thursday night at Iron Wolf Fighting Club in Springfield, Missouri. The mats were sticky from the heat, old ceiling fans rattled overhead, and that familiar smell of sweat mixed with cleaning spray filled the air. And all around her, people in their uniforms were rolling around like they were fighting for their lives. Sounds of bodies hitting the floor, heavy breathing, and the occasional laugh when someone got caught in a good move. This was the kind of place where you had to prove yourself before anyone took you seriously. And these people had a sixth sense about who didn't belong. At least, that's what they figured. Is that somebody's mom? Someone muttered. Sarah heard it clear as day, but her face didn't change. She just found a spot on the side bench and started unpacking her gym bag like she'd been doing this forever. The guy at the front counter, Derek, maybe 23 with leftover pimple marks on his cheeks, came over with some paperwork. He handed her a form to fill out. No friendly chat, no gym tour, just pushed the papers across like she was signing up for car insurance. First time here? He asked, barely glancing her way. Not quite, she answered. He didn't bother asking what that meant. On the other side of the room, Coach Bradley was running some groundwork with his intermediate students. Short, thick guy with no hair left and a voice that sounded like he gargled rocks. He had one of those whistles hanging around his neck that he never actually blew. When Sarah walked in, he looked up for maybe 2 seconds, then went back to his teaching. Probably thought she'd quit after the first week like most beginners do. Sarah just sat there, totally relaxed, taking everything in. She wasn't tapping her foot or checking her phone. Her hands sat still on her legs, breathing steady and calm, watching the action like she was trying to remember a song she used to know. Then this guy Marcus, loud enough for half the gym to hear, goes, "Hey, looks like blue shirt's about to get bent like a pretzel." That got everyone laughing. Sarah definitely heard it. She just looked down, pulled off her sneakers, and walked onto the mat in her bare feet. No fanfare, no big deal, just stepped up like it was any other Thursday and gave a little respectful nod to the space that nobody really noticed. A girl named Jessica, maybe early 20s, leaned over to Marcus and whispered, "She looks like she's never even stepped on a mat before." Marcus grinned. "Yeah, well, hopefully she stretches good so we don't have to call an ambulance." That got even more people laughing. Coach Bradley didn't say a word about it. The thing about Sarah, though, none of it got to her. Not the jokes, not the looks, not the coach who acted like she was invisible. She'd been through this dance before. Maybe not in this exact place, but in plenty of places just like it, where you had to earn respect every single time just because of what people saw when you walked in. When warm-ups kicked off, she moved like she knew exactly what she was doing. Nothing flashy, just smooth. Her hip movements were perfect. Her crawling drills had a nice flow to them. Her bridge-ups were solid and controlled. A few of the newer guys started paying attention. One of them, this kid named Carlos, whispered, "She's got better form than me, and I've been coming here for half a year." But Marcus wasn't watching in any of that. He was too busy bragging about his new ankle support and telling everyone how he almost got kicked out of a competition last month for going too hard on a footlock. Sarah finished her warm-up, dropped down into a squat by the wall, and adjusted her sweatpants like she'd done this routine 1,000 times before. Then she just waited. No rushing around, no trying to impress anybody. She was simply ready. But nobody in that gym had the slightest idea what they were looking at yet. 15 years back, Sarah was standing on hot concrete in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, soaked in sweat, her hands torn up from hours of practicing chokeholds. She was 28, fresh out of a messy divorce, carrying around pain she couldn't even talk about yet. Her twin girls were staying with her sister back in Dallas. That gym, this outdoor place with busted walls and a roof that leaked when it rained, that's where she went to figure out how to feel normal again. She'd only planned on staying a couple months. But when Professor Carlos watched her train on day 4 and said, "Você tem coração," you have heart, she decided to stick around. They practiced 6 days every week. Training started before sunrise. No air conditioning, no going easy on anybody. She picked up the basics like her body had been waiting for them her whole life. But it was the small stuff that really stuck with her. The tough hands of women who'd been through hell. The sound of bodies hitting the mat during takedown practice. How nobody cared about your story, just how you handled yourself when things got rough. Back then, Sarah wasn't trying to become some champion. She was just trying to put herself back together. She didn't take selfies or post about it online. She just kept showing up one day after another until the soreness felt normal and her head finally got quiet. Her uniform was always basic. Her belt was beat up from all those years of use. And when she finally got her purple belt, Professor Carlos didn't make some big ceremony out of it, just gave her one solid nod and said, "Merecido," deserved. She smiled a little, but that was it. She was learning how to be strong without making a big show of it. Eventually, real life dragged her back home. Her sister had a heart attack, the girls were getting older, and suddenly she was dealing with things like school clothes and rent payments instead of training partners. She packed everything up, folded her belt away, and put jiu-jitsu in the closet. For years, that's where it stayed, until just recently. One evening, after pulling a double shift at the insurance office, she found herself watching an old competition video from Brazil on her laptop. The quality was terrible and the sound kept cutting out. But there she was, her younger self, moving from position to position like clockwork. She watched it once, then again, and when her son Tyler came in and said, "Is that you, Mom?" She just nodded. "Damn, you were pretty tough," he said. She smiled and closed the laptop. "I did okay." That night, she couldn't fall asleep. Something inside her chest was stirring again. Not screaming for attention, not demanding anything, just this quiet, steady beat. She didn't tell anyone she was thinking about signing up for Iron Wolf. Didn't mention it on social media. She just looked up their number, asked about beginner classes, and picked the next available Thursday. She didn't tell them about Brazil, or Professor Carlos, or the trophies sitting in a cardboard box in her bedroom closet. She didn't need to, because what they didn't know wasn't their business anyway. It was hers. She wasn't there to show off. She was there to remember who she used to be. So when Marcus cracked his joke about pretzels, Sarah just took a slow breath. She'd heard way worse than that, but being disrespected has a funny way of waking up the parts of you that never really went to sleep. Coach Bradley divided everyone up for practice drills. New people on one side, experienced students on the other. Sarah got sent with the beginners. Marcus caught that right away. "Oh, look," he said loud enough for half the room to hear. "They're putting her with the baby class. Someone should have brought some juice boxes." A few people laughed, not because it was actually funny, but because nobody wanted to be the only one not going along with it. Sarah didn't even glance over. She just paired up with this skinny kid named Eddie, who had white tape wrapped around practically every finger and looked like he was scared to breathe wrong. "You want to go first?" Eddie asked, bouncing on his toes nervously. "You go first," Sarah said, calm as glass. They worked on hip tosses. Eddie was awkward, but he tried hard. He kept saying sorry every time he accidentally knocked into her or lost his balance. "You're doing fine," Sarah told him, fixing his stance while he was moving. "You're actually pretty close. Just keep your arm tighter and turn your body more. Like this." She demonstrated it nice and slow. Eddie's eyes went wide. "Wait, you've done this stuff before?" "A little bit," she said. Across the mat, Marcus was rolling around with a blue belt named Tony. Short, stocky guy with quick hands and a bad knee that made him walk funny. Marcus kept laughing too loud, slapping the mat dramatically every time he got a good spot, making sure everyone was watching him. Coach called for everyone to switch partners. Sarah ended up with this older guy, maybe in his 50s, named Robert. He smelled like mint gum and had a brand new white belt that still had the fold lines from the package. "Got any injuries I should watch out for?" Sarah asked nicely. "Just my ego," he said. "But I think that's pretty much dead already." She actually smiled at that, a real one. They ran through a few more drills. Sarah stayed focused, steady. She wasn't trying to show anyone up, but it was clear as day her balance was too good, her technique too smooth. After one move, Coach Bradley stopped what he was doing and raised an eyebrow. "You said you were new to this place," he said, staring at her. "I am." "Where'd you train before?" Sarah shrugged. "Here and there." He looked like he wanted to dig deeper, but didn't. Instead, he walked over to help someone else with their footwork. Marcus, sitting against the wall chugging from this huge bright green water bottle, caught the whole thing. "She's hiding something," he whispered to Jessica. "Bet she used to do some aerobics classes and thinks she's hot stuff." Jessica did not say anything back. She was watching Sarah, and her face was hard to figure out. When Coach announced free rolling time, you could feel the whole room change. He told everyone to pick their own partners for open practice. Marcus jumped up right away and clapped his hands together. Yo, Sarah, right? Want to go around? Every pair of eyes in the place turned their way. He had on a brown belt that was faded and starting to fall apart at the ends, tied extra tight like it was some kind of crown. Sarah stood up slowly, smoothing out her tank top. Sure, she said, walking over like she had all the time in the world. Calm, no big talk, no wasted energy. Just there. Marcus grinned and gave this over-the-top bow, making fun of the whole tradition. I'll try to go easy on you, he said, chuckling. Sarah didn't say anything. She just bowed back and got into position. The whole gym got quiet. Even Coach Bradley stopped talking mid-sentence, because sometimes people act like they don't care until the silence makes them pay attention. Sarah dropped low, knees bent, fingertips touching the mat. Her breathing stayed exactly the same. No big breath in, no nervous energy, just this smooth, settled feeling, like she was about to make dinner. Not roll with some cocky brown belt while half the room watched for entertainment. Marcus, on the other hand, was bouncing around like a little kid trying to get attention. He shot a look at everyone watching. Let's see if Pilates is going to help her now. Someone in the back snickered quietly. Jessica didn't. Neither did Coach Bradley. Eddie and Robert stood by the wall, staring at Sarah like something big was about to go down, but nobody could say exactly what. Ready? Marcus called out, already sticking his hand out for the traditional slap and fist bump. Sarah nodded. They touched hands. That was it. And then, for just a moment, everything stopped. Sarah moved first. Not fast, not flashy, just perfect. She pulled guard, catching Marcus completely off guard, right in the middle of his step forward. His cocky smile started to slip. She moved her hips like she was turning a page in a book. His balance went to pieces. His knee buckled. The gym was still buzzing with conversation. A few people laughed like it was just some lucky accident. But Coach Bradley's eyes got narrow. He saw what was really happening. In that instant, Sarah's right leg slipped up and over Marcus's shoulder. The angle was flawless. Her left leg whipped around, locking tight behind her ankle. And just like that, she had him. A perfect triangle choke, deep, locked in, no space anywhere. Marcus bucked once, tried to sit up straight, way too late. Sarah made the tiniest adjustment, just a little shift with her hips, and tightened up. He tapped out, 12 seconds flat. Not frantic tapping, not panicked, just 3 soft taps on the mat. That's all it took. Sarah let go right away, no smirk, no showing off. She just sat back, crossed her legs, and gave one small nod, not to Marcus, but to herself. She got up without rushing and walked back to where she'd been sitting. Her tank top was damp with sweat from the gym's heat. She wasn't looking for cheers or high fives. Didn't even glance around to see who was watching. Just grabbed her small towel, patted her face dry, and took a sip from her beat-up water bottle. The whole place went dead quiet. Marcus was still lying there, staring up at the ceiling like he couldn't believe what just happened. Jessica stood frozen with her mouth hanging open. Even Eddie turned to Robert with huge eyes, like they'd just witnessed something impossible. Coach Bradley finally broke the silence. His voice was quiet, but everyone caught it. That wasn't beginner's luck. Marcus sat up, his face bright red, not from being embarrassed, but from how tight that choke had been around his neck. He didn't say a single word. What could he say? Sarah settled back down on the bench, stretched her legs out straight. She pulled her hair back into a simple ponytail. Her face showed nothing, just calm. Damn, Carlos whispered from the other side of the room. That was the smoothest triangle I've ever seen with my own eyes. Robert nodded. Told you she knew what she was doing. Nobody laughed this time. When a room full of jokers suddenly gets serious, you know something real just went down. Coach Bradley looked around with his arms crossed. His usual tough guy attitude was nowhere to be found. He didn't say anything else, just nodded once and pointed to the next pair. But you could feel everyone thinking the same thing. Who exactly is this woman? Marcus was still on the mat, rubbing his neck where the choke had been. He kept his eyes down as he got up and walked to the far corner. Jessica looked like she wanted to say something to him, but kept her mouth shut. Sarah didn't rub it in. She didn't even look his way. She'd already moved on to whatever came next. Next round, Coach called out. Keep it moving. Sarah stood up and stretched her arms nice and slow. She didn't jump up asking for another match, but she didn't try to hide either. She just waited, ready for whatever. A few of the serious students noticed how still she was. Not tense, not scared, just completely balanced. This time Carlos stepped up. You want to go another round? He asked, keeping his voice low. Sure, she said. They shook hands, slapped palms, bumped fists. This match lasted a bit longer. Carlos came at her fast, young, athletic, full of energy. He tried to speed things up right away, but Sarah slowed him down with smart grips and steady guard work. No rushing, no wasted energy. She swept him once, got past his guard, then backed off to let him reset. She wasn't rolling like she had anything to prove. She rolled like someone who'd been here before. Coach Bradley was paying attention now. He wasn't talking much, but his eyes were glued to the action. So were Jessica's. Eddie leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, whispering to Robert, "She's way better than all of us." Carlos tapped out after about a minute and a half. Armbar. Sarah helped him up, gave his shoulder a friendly pat, and sat back down. Then Jessica stepped forward. "Can I try?" she asked. Sarah got up without hesitation. Same calm energy as before. They started rolling. Jessica was good. Solid base, knew her angles. She pushed harder, tried to grab Sarah's wrist, went for a quick arm drag. Sarah defended it, came back with a simple collar grip, slowed everything down, then passed her guard, got to her back, rear naked choke, tap. Clean as a whistle, just like the others. Jessica sat up afterward and looked Sarah straight in the eyes. "You've been doing this for a long time." Sarah finally said more than a few words. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I have." Coach Bradley walked over as they finished up. His usual tough guy act was completely gone. He stood there like he wasn't sure what to ask first. "You said you were new to this place," he said again. Sarah nodded. He waited a beat. "Where'd you train before?" "Brazil," she said simply. "Rio de Janeiro." The whole room went quiet again. Someone in the back whispered, "Wait, Brazil?" Coach tilted his head. "How long were you down there?" 4 years. The silence stretched out. Carlos blinked hard. "Are you a black belt?" Sarah hesitated for a second, then let out a breath. I am. I just don't wear it anymore." Nobody laughed. Nobody said a word. Even Marcus, sitting by the wall, stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Coach just nodded slowly. "You should have mentioned that." "I didn't come here for that," she said. "I just wanted to train." And that was it. No big speech, no long story, just the truth. Sometimes the toughest thing you can do is just show up without having to justify yourself to anybody. Nobody talked much after that moment. The whole vibe in the gym had changed. Not in some big, obvious way, but in that quiet, careful way people act when they realize they've completely misjudged someone. A few of the regular guys gave Sarah respectful nods as they walked by. Nothing fake, nothing because they felt bad. Just genuine respect, the kind that doesn't need words. Marcus still hadn't gotten back on the mat. He sat against the wall by himself, sipping water and looking anywhere except at other people. His brown belt didn't seem to mean as much anymore, like the whole room had stripped it away just by going silent. Coach Bradley called time. "All right, everybody come over here." The group moved to the edge of the mat, sweating, hands on their hips, breathing heavy. Sarah stood a little to the side with her towel, not trying to fit in, not trying to be different. Coach Bradley looked around the room, then back at her. "Some of you have been training here for years," he said. "You know how I feel about belts and proving yourself through work, not talk." He stopped for a second. But tonight reminded everybody that real skill doesn't always come with fancy stripes on your belt. A few people glanced towards Sarah. Coach kept talking. "Sarah's been at this longer than most of us in this room. That doesn't mean we put her up on some throne, but it does mean we listen when someone like that gets on the mat." Nobody complained, nobody rolled their eyes. Even Marcus stared down at his hands. Jessica raised her hand. "Could she maybe teach us sometime?" The room chuckled, but it wasn't mean this time. It was excited. Coach smiled. "We can talk about that later." People started gathering their stuff. Eddie came over, looking embarrassed, scratching his head. "Hey, sorry I was so weird earlier." "You did great," Sarah told him. "You've got natural talent." "Thanks." He paused. "Did you really choke that guy out in 12 seconds? Sarah smiled just a tiny bit. "I wasn't watching the clock." He laughed and walked away, shaking his head. Sarah picked up her bag, put her sneakers back on, and stepped off the mat without saying anything. She walked past Marcus on her way to the door. He stood up, still looking uncomfortable and red-faced. "Hey," he said, making her stop. She turned around. He coughed, rubbed his neck. "I was completely out of line." She didn't make it simple for him. She didn't give him an easy smile or laugh it off. She looked him dead in the eyes for a long moment, then said, "Yeah, you sure were." Then she walked right out that door. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Sarah walked to her beat-up Honda with slow, confident steps. not tired from the workout, just completely at peace with herself. She didn't throw herself into the barn or pound the steering wheel like you see in movies. She just sat there quietly, hands resting on her lap, still catching her breath from training. Her phone lit up with a text. Tyler, Mom, you cooking tonight or should I order pizza? She grinned. Coming home now. She turned the key and pulled out of the parking lot. No dramatic music playing, no big speech about what just happened, just a regular Thursday night, moving forward. Because the best wins are the ones you don't need to brag about to anyone. Dinner was nothing fancy, boxed mac and cheese with some leftover chicken. Sarah wasn't trying to impress anybody. She didn't say much while they ate either. Tyler sat across from her, scrolling through his phone between bites. How was your workout thing? He asked without looking up. She shrugged. Pretty good. He finally looked at her face. Did you have to show anyone how it's done? A tiny smile crossed her lips. Maybe one or two people. Tyler laughed. I knew it. Those guys had no clue who they were messing with. Later that night, she opened her dresser drawer and dug around until she found an old shoebox pushed way in the back. Her black belt was inside, beat up from years of training, the edges all worn and soft. She picked it up and felt the weight of it in her hands. All those years tied up in a piece of fabric. Then she folded it back up and put it away. She wasn't quite ready to tie it around her waist again, but she was done pretending it didn't exist. Next morning, she grabbed her phone and typed out a message to Coach Bradley. If you ever need help with Monday classes, I'm available. His reply came back fast. Hell yes, come in tonight. She set the phone down and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Just Sarah. Regular mom in a faded t-shirt with her hair in a messy bun. Nothing special to look at. Just a woman who remembered what she was capable of and reminded a room full of people that real power doesn't need to announce itself. So next time someone counts you out, remember Sarah's story. You don't need to make big speeches when your actions do all the talking.